Hugh live inside the Beltway, joined by former New Jersey Governor Christie, who is co-chair with Mike Pompeo of the Republican Redistricting Trust. That's what I want to focus on mostly. But first, your reaction to results last night, Governor Christie. Welcome. Always a pleasure to talk to you. What did you think about the way things broke in 5 states last night?
Well, interesting. I think a real mixed bag as you look around the country. Hugh, I think the key race going into last night was and remains this morning the Pennsylvania Senate primary, and with I think the last I saw, there's about 2,500 votes separating Dr. Oz and Dave McCormick, with about 5% of the vote still to be counted. So I think that's a key race for control of the United States Senate. I think we have a real chance to win that seat, or keep that seat rather, in Pennsylvania. And so this is going to be an interesting result as we go down the line. I don't think I was very surprised by much of the rest of what happened in the results that came yesterday. I think you see Republican incumbent governors continuing to do well who were challenged. Brad Little in Idaho, a real challenge from a Trump-backed candidate in his own lieutenant governor. He appeared to have won that primary, and now he'll be reelected as governor. So I think we continue to see a trend in that regard.
I have one takeaway, which is they had Kathy Barnett. The last 3 polls that came out had Kathy Barnett tied with Dr. Oz and Dave McCormick in the low 20s. They were all wrong, and they always are wrong. They always understate Republican vote totals for the people I like. It just drives me crazy. Governor, you and Mike Pompeo have done a magnificent job in the Redistricting Trust, and I just want to say kudos. I didn't think you had a prayer in New York. Tell people what happened there, and God bless you.
Well, thank you. In New York, there was really the most outrageous gerrymandering of a map of the entire cycle in New York, in both their state Senate seats and their congressional seats. And we took the strategy of saying, if they were going to overreach like that, we were going to work in concert with Republicans in New York to challenge it in a New York court system that we knew was stacked against us, given that 6 of the 7 members of the New York Court of Appeals, which is their highest court, were Democrats and Democrat appointees. But as it turned out, this overreach by Kathy Hochul and Chuck Schumer and the gang in New York was so bad that even that court had to rule 4-3 that it was an illegal gerrymander. And now I think you're going to see, because of that win we had in New York, that across the country we will have won the redistricting battle, probably gaining 4 to 5 seats for Republicans, which means we're in a tie right now with them going into the election based on their current 5-vote margin. So, it was a great win. I think Secretary Pompeo and I took a lot of heat, as you'll remember, Hugh, earlier on in redistricting, that we were losing redistricting. We felt very strongly that our strategy was right. And as it turns out, I'm gratified, and I know the Secretary is as well, that we've been vindicated.
Oh, you have been vindicated, and I hope you do it again in 10 years, and you'll be still young and spry, you two. Let's go to Florida for one more quick redistricting check before we talk about the presidential in 2024. Ron DeSantis put out a map. I'm not quite sure if it's the map or not the map, or if you're still battling down there. What's the status in Florida?
It is the map, but there is a battle going on in court. We've had one judge who has said the map is not constitutional in Florida. It's now going up to the appellate court. It is still the map that is in effect, Hugh, but that'll be a fight that will go all the way to the Florida Supreme Court. But we're convinced that in the end, what they're going to find is that Governor DeSantis followed the Constitution along with the legislature in Florida, and we believe that map will be upheld.
Well done everywhere. I mean, really well done everywhere. Let's talk about 2024. I wrote a column about it. I put you in the camp along with Mike Pence and Larry Hogan that hopes the party reverts to the norm. What'd you make of that assessment, Governor?
Look, Hugh, I think your assessment was an interesting one. I don't know whether we're talking about reverting to the norm. I think what we're saying is that what I think the Republican Party wants to get back to is winning. And the fact is that between 2018 and 2020, we lost the House, the Senate, and the White House, and we lost a number of governorships. And the only other time since 1860 that's happened was 1930 to 1932 under Herbert Hoover. Now, I'm sorry, that's not winning. And what we want to do is go back to winning again, Hugh. And I think if what I've been trying to argue across the country is that you can't govern unless you win, and we need to get back to being able to attract the votes that we lost in the 2018 to 2020 period.
So the obvious thing that matters the most with a large field, and I think there will be a large field whether or not the former president runs. Do you agree with me by the way, on that? A large field whether or not Donald Trump runs?
I do not. I think if Donald Trump runs, the fields will be 2/3 smaller than it would be if he did run.
Oh, interesting. Who will be in if he runs?
It'll be interesting. I think you'll see the vice president, former Vice President Pence run no matter what. I think you probably see Secretary Pompeo run no matter what. I think you probably see Ted Cruz run no matter what. Beyond that, I think there are some other people, including myself, who would consider it. But I think you're looking at a 5 to 6 person race as opposed to a 15 to 20 person race.
All right. Now, either way, the rule set that comes out of the RNC is going to matter a lot. And I had a conversation with one of the people on my list this week that I said, pay attention to the rules that Dave Bossie and Ron McDaniel come up with, because those 12 debates will decide it all. Do you agree with me on that? I think those rule sets matter an enormous amount.
They matter a lot. They always do, because in the end, as you know, those debates are very, very important because they help to shape both people's opinions and the narrative, the media narrative that goes along with what happens in the race, and that affects fundraising, momentum, and all the rest. And so there's no doubt that those rules were very, very important, and that those debates should be done differently, in my view, than they were done in 2016. This should not be a situation where we decide, who gets on what stage based upon polling if we have a large field. I think it's much more important to do it more like the Democrats, quite frankly, did it in 20, which was when they had a large field. They had random draws for who would be on what night if there had to be 2 nights of debates. And I think that made them have more interest and less wasted resources. I can tell you, Hugh, there were any number of the candidates in 2016, myself included, who wound up spending money on Fox national advertising in September and October of 2015 to make sure that we were well in the top 10 so we would be in the primary debate. That's a waste of resources and a waste of time. And I think what we need to do is make sure that the candidates who are there get a fair shot to be heard.
I agree. By the way, I also agree, no marginal candidates. I love Michelle Bachmann. She was nice. She shouldn't have been on the stage in 2012. George Pataki should not have been on the stage in 2016. We got to have some sort of vet that says, sorry, you're not, prove us wrong. If you show up if you get, I might use polling to let a marginal candidate on if you show us at 10% or more, but we're not going to let you go on there and learn how to sell Vegematics at the expense of time on a Republican stage.
I agree with you, Hugh, and I'd also say this. I think in 2016, the other thing that happened was that Carly Fiorina argued herself onto the stage.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that wound up in that second debate, as you'll recall, at the Reagan Library, to be just counterproductive.
And also, the large stage meant that when you threw your grenade at Marco Rubio, you had to throw it from one end of the stage to the other. Now, you had good aim, but it's just too many people. And so I hope this time around. So do you have input into that? How are they doing that? I know David Bossie came up with a see you later Presidential Debate Commission decision, and Ron McDaniel okayed it, and I'm fine with that. But as to back-to-back nights and random drawings, I'm all for that. Conservatives asking questions, I'm all for that. But do you have visibility into that process?
We do through the RNC members, Hugh. And so in each one of the states, as you know, there are 3 voting members of the RNC, your state chairman and your 2 national committee people. And they're going to be the ones who ultimately are going to be voting on and deciding what the rules are going to be. So I think we're all going to be trying, who are interested, are going to be trying to have input and make sure as best we can that it's fair. But remember, the RNC membership is still dominated by folks who were nominated and elected by President Trump and his folks.
The president is got a sufficiently confident level that he's not going to ask for it to be rigged, I don't think. You agree with me on that?
No. Look, I don't think rigged would be too hard a word, and I think it's a word that we got to get away from. I think it's what we're more concerned about is to make sure that everybody has an opportunity.
There might be a home field advantage built in. I will say that. There might be a home field advantage. Governor Chris Christie, congratulations on the New York win. I can't tell people how important that is for the next 10 years in America. And Chris Christie and Mike Pompeo get to take a victory lap on that one. Thank you, Governor.